Anyways, everybody, just holding off for a bit. Hey, everybody out there in Twitch, YouTube, Facebook land. I'm trying out a new piece of software for streaming, and you're my guinea pigs today. So right now, I am going to take a few moments to just go onto the inner tubes to verify that indeed what I think is supposed to be working is actually working. You know the story, famous last words. And sure enough, it's Twitch, YouTube, turn it up. And yes, of course, it's up and running on. Gee, it actually works. The software is actually streaming on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch. Awesome. Yeah, I got turned on to this software by a friend of mine who does a lot of streaming. Because before, what I was using was a thing called OBS, very popular streaming software, but I kind of outgrew it because it was really, it did the job what it was supposed to do very, very well, but I wanted to add in special effects and stuff, like what other professional streamers were doing, and it really got complicated quickly, and then a friend of mine told me about this product called Streamlabs. Now, I'm not advertising. I'm not paid for anything. I'm just a satisfied user. And so what had happened was that I downloaded it, checked it out, did some private tests, and today is the day where I say, okay, I think I got everything set up. Hi to Nightwind song. But the problem was the fact that I just did not know, whether or not this was going to work on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch, because I thought that sounds too good to be true. But obviously it's working because I am looking at, this stream right now on my other screen. Well, it's not really another screen. I have one of those really, really wide monitors. So I just look over here, which is still the same monitor. It's just amazing technology. Wow. And I can see myself on YouTube, and I'm going to click, here I am on Facebook Live, that is, and here I am on Twitch, which of course will always be my number one place. I don't know if I'm recording this or not. If I am, that's great. If it's not, then obviously I'm going to have to do some more adjustments. So really, I'm just flying by the seat of my pants on this stream because really, I have no agenda whatsoever other than making certain that the streaming software actually works. And it looks like it actually does. So, coolness. So here I am. I'm in my lair. Just another Sunday around here. My big problem right now is that I got a bunch of new boxes of stuff, and I got to go ahead and open the boxes of stuff and actually start putting them up on the shelves or be making sure they work, because of course, like one of the boxes is supposed to have a Fairchild Channel F, a bunch of carts, because I have a Fairchild Channel F, but unfortunately it doesn't work anymore. So I got what I hope was a working one, so I would then examine the working circuits on one and check it on the failure on the other one, and hopefully be able to repair. Because back in the 80s, I used to do a lot of repairs on Atari 2600s and with Fairchild Channel Fs and in televisions, up until the point I got so busy doing software and interplay that all kind of fell by the wayside. Now, of course, since this is on Twitch, any of you on Twitch, okay, go ahead and just send messages to me and so forth, and I will answer them I'll answer them. Now, granted, of course, if you ask me something that's NDA, I will have to say I can't confirm or deny it because you know how that works. One of the biggest problems I always have as being a game dev is that secrets. Now, the issue with secrets is that they can and will harm a company if the wrong secrets get out, which is why I totally respect non-disclosures and other sort of... I really have to move my glasses down because here you can actually see my screen and the reflection, and if I look like this, so I'm going to have to do some experiments on figuring out either whether I have to get a new pair of glasses with anti-glare or something like that, because I'm looking into getting a light and stuff like that so I can actually go more professional. And I may seriously think about getting a green screen or something, so that I don't inadvertently break NDA by having something visible in my thing, because like the NDA stuff is actually under my desk and it's there by design. Here I have shelves of dev kits that are all like no one gives a crap anymore. Like there's a game, that is a Macintosh G4 Cube. This is a classic Xbox, classic, the original Xbox back 2000, circa 2000. Here is an NVIDIA Shield and a Razer Forge TV, which essentially is my Ouya dev kit. Down below is an Xbox 360 dev kit, which is now, of course, considered obsolete. That here is a Sony PlayStation 3 dev kit. And right there is going to be a spot where I'm going to set up the Dreamcast dev kit. I finally got that thing up and running again. So, and of course, next to it I'm going to put the 3DO dev kit, which is already operational. I already prepared that one about a month or two ago. But hopefully, I will be putting together like episodes and so forth where I'll be talking about how it was like to work with the specific of these ancient dev kits, since now my non-disclosures have expired. And it's not like Sega's going to care about how people develop software on the Dreamcast, considering that they're no longer selling or supporting the Dreamcast. So it's not like I'm harming Sega in any way of releasing that kind of information. Now, of course, certain things are totally taboo, is like how to develop titles on systems that are currently being sold. Examples are like the Nintendo Switch, the PlayStation 5, the Google Stadia, and the the Xbox Scorpio, i.e. Series X, because I signed a contract that says I can't do that. So there you go. Speed D408 asks, can you state how the 2GS port of Nox Archaeus? Well, it's a little weird grammar, but what he's really trying to ask is that I am currently working on Nox Archaeus for the 2GS. It is based on the Apple II game. They graciously gave me access to the entire source code. I'm working with a bitmap artist to redo all the art in 16-color Apple IIGS art. The best way to describe it is very, very close to how Ultima 1 for the 2GS was done. So I'm right now still auditioning musicians to take all the music track, the Mockingbird music that was done for Nox Archaeus, and recomposing them for the Ensoniq chip that's on the 2GS. So it will sound beautiful. Sound effects were added to the game because before, the game just had some and so forth, that kind of sound effects. But like footsteps, I'll be putting sound effects and so forth. Some of it will be recycled from another game I did on the 2GS that had sound effects. And of course, and of course I have my day job, so therefore, whereas Nox Archaeus, if I ever retired and stuff, I wouldn't mind doing Apple IIGS games until I stopped breathing. But unfortunately, right now, I still need to pay the bills, and I am working, so therefore I have responsibilities. So it's not like I can devote 24/7 on doing 2GS games. In a market where if I sold 1,000 copies, it'd be a freaking miracle. Brought to you by Diet Mountain Dew. Corroding my stomach since 1980. Nightwind Song asks, neat, I'd love to get a 2GS someday. Of course, I'd love to get my SX64 refurbished someday too. Well, if you ever contact some classic game groups near you, they'd probably be able to give you a hand in restoring or repairing, because that's now the newest hotness, is being able to figure out ways of keeping our classic equipment still running today. One of the problems that we're having is that several machines, a good example, the C64. The Commodore 64, most of the chips you could still buy today. So if you had a failure of your Commodore 64, you just simply unplug the chip, plug in a new one, or you can cut out the resistor, solder in a new one, etc. Usually it's the capacitors or memory chips that fail, but there are two custom chips, the 6810, which is the microprocessor of the Commodore 64, but the SID chip, the sound interface chip, once they're gone, they're gone. As far as I know, no one's going around making brand new SID chips, mostly because the factory that made them and Commodore kind of lost the design. I've heard of people in Europe, especially Germany, that are working to make a SID compatible chip. I don't know if they've ever been successful in manufacturing a SID compatible. I know people have done an FPGA version of the SID, but because it's all digital and there's no analog components like the original SID chip, I can actually tell the difference in the sound when sound's being generated on a real SID and a FPGA SID. Because I have like one of those Mr. FPGA devices, and I told to emulate C64, and I listened to the music like Master of the Lamps. Then I listened to the music on a real C64, and there is a difference in the music. Snorri Pug writes, Becky, greetings from Argentina. How much do you needed to know about digital electronics back in the day compared now as a game programmer? Back in the day, like the SID chips and so forth, in the 70s and the 80s, computers were very simple compared to what we have today. I mean, really, really simple. You could build a computer with like about, 8 or 9 parts. The CPU, a static memory chip, some sort of I/O device like the 6522 RAM input-output timer chip. Then you had some chips just a buffer to get to for I/O, such as like a joystick or a keyboard or something like that. And of course, there were chips that allowed you to do video display. You wire these up, and now you've got a microprocessor and computer, and then at that point, you just write some code, put it into a ROM. And now when you turn your computer on, it'll actually put up a display and go beep if you actually had added sound hardware. And what I'm kind of describing is the original Apple I. The Apple I computer developed by Steve Wozniak in 1976 was him taking what he already knew from designing Breakout and other games at Atari and turning it into a computer that was supposed to be nothing more than a simple terminal. But it was just built with parts that he just got from the computer stores. And that required some level of electrical engineering. But even then, electrical engineering wasn't that difficult to do. I mean, when I was making hardware back in the 70s, I was just simply getting like schematics of the Apple II integer card. And from the schematic, which was in one page, and you can actually, there's only like 50 or 60 lines on it for the connections, and that's it. It wasn't that hard for me to take that design, buy the parts at Radio Shack, because in those days, Radio Shack actually sold computer parts in individual chips, wire it up, then I could make a few modifications so I could then read and write memory, which then ended up turning into an Atari 2600 ROM emulator. Whereas today, computers are so high speed that you really can't just wire up anything anymore, because the wires themselves would generate too much radio interference that the system would just fail. And of course now I find these websites where I just simply lay out my chips, give it my circuit connection diagram, and it actually lays out the circuit board for me. Man, I would have killed for something like that back in the 70s, where you actually had to literally take a piece of tape and put it on the acetate, and then bend it and put another piece, and then this would turn into the photo negative, which you use to etch your circuit boards. Yeah, we didn't have any back in my day. You had to use, stickers and tape and actual pens. Yeah, not like you whippersnappers with your push button. Out pops this. Like, oh man, things that we have today we take for granted. Oh, I would have so killed for it. Oh, I would have killed. But today it's one where, unless you're designing peripherals, you really don't need any digital electronics knowledge whatsoever. All you need is just simply the knowledge to write software. And of course, writing software is a totally far more advanced than what we had back then. Let me go to the next question here. Nikos UOA writes, what's your view on games that are tied to online services that will stop being supported sooner or later? Do you think it'll be a new normal? Unfortunately, I have to agree with you. It is the new normal. I don't agree with it. I'll tell you right now. I do not agree with it. Let's say hypothetically, because I cannot confirm or deny whether or not I am working on such titles. But let's just say if I had a hand in it, or I was in the decision-making process. If I was to design a game that was to require an online service, examples would be like, World of Warcraft, or Battleborn. The issue I would have is that I would have a method of sunsetting the game, because that's going to happen eventually. I don't care what the game is, even World of Warcraft. One day, Blizzard's going to come up with something new, or something's going to happen with Blizzard, and they're just going to wind it down because people are playing the new hotness, whatever it is. And they're going to shut down World of Warcraft. And that will happen maybe in 2030, 2040, maybe even 2050. Who knows? I mean, maybe it is going to be a game that's going to be lasting, until, Star Trek is a thing, is science fact. But the thing is that we don't know. And you have to at least design the game so that when the time comes that that the management is going to say, hey, yank that plug, there has to be a way to then send out server code so the game will run by itself without any usage of the home base. It's just going to be you playing the game. Or, as in some cases, very rare, they just give out the source code to the server to the public domain community, in which they then take on the reins of maintaining servers and letting the people play the game ad infinitum. And those are the two options you've got. Because if you take the third option, which is shutting down the servers, causes the game to completely fail. An example, there was an Age of Empires game called Age of Empires Castle Siege that was on the phone, strictly on the phone, and it was a cute little, simple little mobile version of Age of Empires. I loved playing it, and I was about ready, just through grinding, to get the last of the things in the game, because by a lot of grinding, you can actually still earn every single thing in the game. When I got the note from Microsoft saying, we're sunsetting the game, we're turning off the servers, sorry, and within 3 or 4 more weeks, they made good on their promise, shut off the servers. So now when I opened up Castle Siege, the first thing it says is connecting to server, and that's all it does now. So I eventually had to just delete the app off of my phone. And I was looking at myself going like, this game should not require a bloody server. It could have easily made an update to the game where they put the backend, the game code itself, and put it into my phone, and it allowed me just to log in solely so I can get my game state, have it stored on my phone locally, and let me play the game forever. Yeah, I won't be able to go on a leaderboards, and I won't be able to share my scores or team up with other people. But at least a single-player game, which they did have, would work ad infinitum. And I was really, really disappointed that they never allowed an option of any kind to allow the game to continue on forward. But the whole reason companies are trying to do this software as a service thing is because lately AAA titles cost more money to make than a Marvel movie. Hard to believe, but they do. The Call of Duty, that game, the budget on it was like Destiny from Bungie. The budgets on there were insane. So instead of selling you the game for $69.95, and that's all the money they're ever going to see, that's why they created the business model where then you have to pay more money for the downloadable DLC, the digitally licensed content. And that way they keep getting you more and more money. And then, of course, now with MMOs, you have to pay a monthly fee. And now, of course, like Fortnite, you've got these seasons where you pay for a season pass. But they're constantly creating new content. So it's not like they just simply finish the game, put it up there, and now they're just making all this money. They're paying people to keep this game going. But the fact that it's income constantly coming in, with employees constantly making you product, it's something that they, as long as people keep playing Fortnite, they're just going to keep making more content as long as that sweet, sweet money keeps coming in. And it's a bit different than, hey, I made Bard's Tale 1, Bard's Tale 2, Bard's Tale 3. Because after doing Bard's Tale 3, they said, well, once we sell the game, after a year, nobody wants to buy that game anymore. Just a couple of collectors, and that's pretty much it. So I need to make Bard's Tale 4, or Dragon Wars, or Dragon Wars 2, or Dragon Wars 3. I just got to keep putting out a new game, a new sequel every year, in order to keep the revenue coming, which then pays my paycheck and allows me to, eat. But nowadays, it's one where if I was to release this engine, like, I don't know, Shredded Worlds, which its first game would be Dragons of the Rip, and then you just go ahead and start playing it, but then later on, I will then say, hey, I've got a new adventure. It's the same game engine, and it's actually part of the same game. You say, hey, pay us $10 and we'll give you a new module, and at that point, you can then go and adventure in a new town. But your first town's still there, and you can just mix and match which modules you want, and as long as each new one comes in with a new name, etc., then I can actually do it ad infinitum. Now, granted, creating a game engine that's that flexible takes longer than you thought, but in the end, it actually is worth it. I had a question here from Cyber Pope, who's asking, is Dragons of the Rip still works? Yes, it's still in the works. It's actually the game's engine's name is Shredded Worlds, and the first scenario is Dragons from the Rip, not of the Rip, from the Rip. After the story was finished up, it's better from the Rip. It's better. Nike says, thanks for reply. A follow-up. What is the digital-only games that disappear together with eShops for old consoles? That's the one that I'm really... how to say it? It's one of the reasons that I'm really not happy with consoles in general today. As you can see behind me, I have plenty of boxed games, cartridges, artifacts from the good old days. And the thing is that, hey, I've got a box there, of, let's say, Clay Fighter from Blockbuster sitting up on a shelf, or the N64. It means I could just pull up my N64, put the cartridge in there, and even though it's been over 30 years, I could turn on the cartridge and play it. I think it was we released it 1999? No, 20 years. It's been over 20 years. But I've got games that are 30 years old, 40 years old. I mean, the Channel F was 1976. And that's easily 40 years old. But now with these new game online stores, goes on with that I play... let's see a good example. I just want a good example here. iOS. There's a good example right there. With iOS, Apple, good old phone here. anyways, the issue with the phone is that you can only buy your applications digitally. Now, granted, Apple Computer is one of those companies that will probably be around by the long after my grandchildren pass away. But that's not always the case with everyone else. Good examples are like the Wii, or more likely recently, I'm just going to go with a real controversy. Recently, Sony announced that they're going to be sunsetting digital purchases of for the PlayStation 3 and the PlayStation Vita. Once that was made public, there was a huge backlash to Sony, because the fact is that even though PlayStation 3s and PlayStation Vitas haven't been sold for quite some time, there's still some people who go pull up their PlayStation 3s, occasionally get a security download, but they may find a game or a movie they want to play and so forth, because there's nothing wrong with the machines. They run just fine. Thank you, Retro Compot, for the tip. I gotta make something where it would like bloop dip. That is one thing. Is anybody out there who knows how to pretty up a stream using Streamlabs? I would very much like to DM you and maybe have a private conversation and give me tips on how to make this cooler, so if anybody joins me and does, they have little bleaky lights and stuff like that. I may be a computer programmer of renown. I don't know everything. I don't. I wish I did, but I don't. So I'd love stuff. But back to what I was talking about. Due to the backlash, Sony said, okay, we'll leave the store up and running. But had that backlash not happened, they would have probably eventually turned off access to the PlayStation 3 or the PlayStation Store for the PlayStation 3 and the PlayStation Vita, mostly because they sell only a handful of copies of the games that they can't financially justify having an engineer constantly monitoring this. Only because the companies make money, and software engineers do make a lot of money, so it does take a lot of game downloads to justify paying for someone. But the whole thing is eventually is that that brings up the dilemma of how can you open source the PlayStation Store just for those platforms when they're technically still using it for the PlayStation 4, 5, and I don't think they have a handheld, do they? No, they don't. Just PlayStation 4 and 5. But the thing those means that if they ever do shut off the servers, so to prevent me from downloading copies of my games for PlayStation 3 and PlayStation Vita, then did I really buy those games? Did I really drop $19.95 for a copy of, let's say, Out of This World 20th Anniversary Edition for the PlayStation 3, and then I put my PlayStation 3 away, years go by, I pull it down, I want to go play the game, says, I don't have it on my hard drive because I purged it to put in other games, let me go ahead and re-download that. And if they don't have at least the ability to keep copies of the software on a server somewhere so you can re-download it since you bought forever, then that's a problem. And it's one reason why I still buy the game on disc and so forth. But that opens up another can of worms. There's a lot of games out there, especially on PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 3 even, in which the game itself, when you put it in the disc, it needs to be updated. So therefore, you take the game like Super High-Res Chess. I'm just making that game up. You buy a Super High-Res Chess. It's really good. It's a really good game. You put the disc in your drive, and the first thing the machine says is, I need to download an update before I can run the game. What it's really doing is that the game itself doesn't even exist on the disc because they didn't finish the game when they sold it to you. And then they're updating it and so forth until eventually they get the final version, and then that's when you play. But again, you're back to, I bought a disc because I thought the final version was on it. So that's, Nico's UOA writes, and following up saying, imagine if your PS3 fails in 5 years and you buy another and your digital games are gone. Well, look at it from a different point. Your PS3 could be just fine. The hard drive could fail. How are you going to reinstall the operating system if you have to take the physical drive out and put a new drive in, but since it doesn't have the PS3 operating system on there, how are you going to reinstall it? Thankfully, like Xbox and so forth, they have a USB thing so you can flash your, the ROM inside of it will let you use a USB thing to flash your drive with the operating system, and then at that point it'll open up, you log in with a brand new drive, and you're off to the races. I've never tried that with PlayStation. Hope that there's such a thing. If anything, the homebrew community will probably save you. Let's see, is anybody on the other channels having questions or stuff like that? Because, again, this is, like I said before, this is the very, very first time I've ever done a multi-stream stream. So I don't know whether or not I can respond messages. Because right now it says it's only getting stream messages from... let's see, here we go. A guy named Paul Morrison on YouTube writes, Sony now has made it so you can't use a credit card, debit card, or PayPal to buy PlayStation 3 and Vita games. Yes. What they did is that the store on the PlayStation 3 and PlayStation Vita is that if you told it to buy a game, it will then ask you for your credit card or use your Sony points. If your Sony points is already there, it just does the transaction. But if you don't have enough Sony points, you need to buy some, it will put up a dialogue saying, enter in your credit card number, enter in your pint of blood, or whatever it is, and it will then charge a credit card and be done with it. I find it really strange that they took away the ability for your PlayStation 3 and Vita to accept your credit card information, because that's tried and true code that, unless they've been having a heck of a time with fraud, I don't see any other reason as to why they would turn that off. Now, of course, if you still want to play, you'd have to or buy a new game. You could still do so, but you have to open up either the website, which is PlayStation.com, I think is. Don't quote me on that one. I don't really know what it is offhand. Or go to a PlayStation 4 and enter your credit card in there. All you do is buy the points, and then when you buy the points, then you can go say buy PlayStation 3 version of blah blah blah, and then you can add it to your PlayStation 3. So at least you can still download and so forth. But there's always that sword of Damocles, which is at any moment they could just simply say, we're bored, cut off the PlayStation 3 and PlayStation Vita access to their PlayStation Store, and no longer download the games, and I will be sad. Let's see. Who else says? Late says, glad I caught you live. Yes, I'm very much alive. Let's see who else is saying, because I'm trying to read messages from every other source. Someone on YouTube, DOPY, writes, what do you think about the pay-to-win trend? Oh, I could tell you that one right now. I hated it. I hated it the moment it came out. Early on, I saw this game. It was years ago. I saw this game called Game of War Fire Age. I went ahead and downloaded it because they were like 5 gajillion TV ads for it. So I said, okay, obviously they spent a lot of money on these ads. Maybe they put the money into the game. Boy, was I wrong. Oh, the game looks like something that a bunch of college students could throw together in a weekend with Unity. Not saying that's a bad thing, but if somebody's spending tens of millions of dollars on an ad campaign, I expected a little bit more. And then I come to find that the entire basis of the game is that for you to win, you have to buy stuff, which is all consumable stuff. It's not like, hey, pay some money and then you get 2x gold coins forever. No, it's buy these trebuchets. Use the trebuchets against your enemy, but every time you use a trebuchet, it's gone. So then once you run out, you got to go ahead and buy more trebuchets. And somehow there was several thousand people who were spending thousands of dollars a day on this game, and I thought drug dealers had a thing going. Machine Zone was just bringing in the cash because they had people who were either OCD or Gamblers Anonymous and who just had to win at any cost, and they were more than happy to use their credit card to just buy all this stuff for a game that in a world that doesn't exist, in which a week later, no one cares. I mean, like, hey, there's this battle going on. I'm going to go in there with my fortress. I teleport in. I then send my troops to everyone. Pwn the noobs. I got bragging rights. And then a few hours later, someone says, how dare you destroy my temple? I just spent 5,000 in real cash to get this whatever item to then just nuke you so I can then say, I won, I beat you. And then a week later, it's like, does it matter? Does any of this matter? It's a video game, for crying out loud. And it's not like they're awarding prizes, an actual cash prize or something. At least with Dota and Left 4 Dead, they have contests where the champions make actual real money. Game of Wars, none of that. And then they went ahead and did a game called Mobile Strike, which was the same game except reskinned so that it was all modern warfare. But it literally, and when I held up the two games, they were identical in every way, shape, or form except the skinning. And of course, people went over there saying, okay, I'm bored battling with fantasy equipment and stuff. I'm going to go ahead and use M16s, AR-15s, etc. And finding that, what's it called? Finding that, again, in a week, no one's going to care about your battles. Wernetta asks, I heard a really good podcast talking about how those companies work. It was pretty awful listening to. Is it okay to post a link here? Actually, yes, I would like that link only because I'd like to watch it myself. And yes, Arnold Schwarzenegger got money to advertise, and in fact, they put his likeness in the game Mobile Strike. Yeah, there it is. Real Views harpooned by Facebook. Okay, I'm just going to open that link so I can go ahead and read that later on. Harpoon by Smart. Yeah, okay. Well, I'm definitely going to read that later. But yeah, it's a game in which psychology is used in order to get people to get angry at other players and go on vendettas with each other, in which they just spend money to win. And see, for me, is I like games in which I can actually get to the very end of the game with every single thing and not paying a dime. Because at least the whole point is that I can win by skill only. But it didn't take very long for me, because I'm very happy to say I've never spent a single penny on any of the Machine Zone games. But I found that I was only able to level up to a certain point. And then there was literally nothing I could do to win any of the other players unless I spent money. And these packs were like $99 to start. So, and of course I was seeing the chat saying, hey, I bought 5 packs today. I bought 2 packs today. And I'm like, you just described someone's rent. I mean, 6 packs, that's $600. In most part of rural America, that's a month's rent. For most part of urban America, that's a week's rent. But it's still like, where are you getting this money to spend on this stuff? Now, granted, if you're like a really rich person, okay, fine. If you got the money to spend it, go ahead. But it was like, I can't beat these players unless I pull out my credit card and spend money. And thankfully, even though I do suffer from OCD, I wasn't so hell-bent on winning that I was willing to spend money. And when I found that there was literally no way in the world I can win by skill alone, then I'm done here. And I stopped playing the game and eventually deleted them off my phone and stopped thinking about it, because it really was back to the original point. When you're in the heat of battle, pwning the noobs and so forth, solely because you're just in the moment. But then after the smoke is cleared and you've destroyed everybody, and maybe somebody came by to destroy you in retaliation, Does it matter? I mean, after a year, did you go back to that battle and say, hey, I accomplished this, but who cares? And then that's when you really have to think about, why did you spend $99 for a pack on a game in which, in the end, doesn't even give you a Game Center achievement? I mean, maybe I could excuse it saying, okay, if you do this and you get this, you get a shortcut to go ahead and get your Steam achievements so you get complete achievements instead of grinding for the next 5 weeks. Okay, fine, I can be conned into saying, here, I'll pay $5 to go ahead and get all the gold I need to go ahead and buy the super boots of blah blah so I can go over and get to this last place and get my final stars and get the final achievement. Whereas if I had to play 5 more weeks of grinding, I could still get the gold. I just need to pay it so I can get 5 weeks in advance. Okay, I could be talked into coughing up the $5. But if it's, hey, there's these 5 ranked players, they're beating each other up, but if you want to be ranked in that group, you need to buy the $99 pack, count me out. Just count me out. I feel real sorry for anybody who gets suckered into that, because when the smoke does clear, they'll probably have a lot of regret about all the money they spent on these games, and they have nothing to show for it. So pay to win is definitely something that you will never, ever, ever see old school doing. I mean, I've been offered numerous times to participate in working with a pay to win game system. And when I found that that was their business model, I said, thank you for considering me, but I'm not going to be part of this. There you go. Someone writes, the woman they talked to in the podcast drained $250,000 of her retirement funds. I believe that. There are too many stories of people spending all their money on pay-to-win games or just DLC or stuff like that, and not understanding that, hey, every time they do that, it's like $99, and $99 is a lot of money. Someone writes, government stimulus check. No, most people pay the rent and food for government stimulus checks. You only spend your government stimulus checks on this kind of crap if in the event you're already well off and you don't need the money. Katenga writes, I'm not a fan of pay-to-win or games that lock play intervals behind timers or pay-to-play. I don't mind much, though, when it's just for cosmetics, though. I agree. I don't really... to make a game, like, good example, Farmville. One of the things I did not like about the Farmville mechanic was that you would plant your crops, but you had to wait like an hour of physical time before you can harvest them. But if you paid a star, or like I think it was a gem, wasn't it? I may be incorrect on details. But if you get paid a gem, then you can harvest your crops immediately. But of course, gems are very rare, very hard to get in the game. But hey, if you coughed up, $5, you get 10 gems. If you coughed up $99, you get 1,000 gems. And that's how Zynga made a lot of money in its early days, was those timer-based games that for people who wanted to level up quickly, you bought the gems, which then allowed you to level up quickly so you can get bragging rights. At least in most of their games at Zynga, if you just simply were patient, you could still get to those levels. But yeah, some people wanted to be leveled up in like 2 weeks. Other people said, yeah, it's going to take 2.5 years to get there. But hey, that's, but at least it wasn't that, hey, in order for you to even be ranked, you need to give them all your money. That's where it crosses the line. Nightwind Song writes, personally, I only play for story. Those play-to-win games aren't exactly Oscar Pulitzer material. I think the statement says everything right there. Cyberpoke writes to Katinga, Pixel Crack had a discussion with my son about trying to impress upon him the value of money when he wanted to drop a month's worth of allowance on Fortnite skins. Have conversations like that. If any of you have kids, make sure you talk to them about that. That, yeah, it's cool to have Fortnite skins, but make sure that you don't, spend a year's worth of allowance on some skins. Really realize, only spend what you can get rid of, not, It's not like buying a bicycle, where at least you have a bicycle and you can keep it for a couple of years. Someone in ZB Gameplay writes, "Hi, have to try blockchain games. Can you earn money on those?" Blockchain is a buzzword. That's all it is. That's another pet peeve of mine. Today, the magic word is blockchain, like Bitcoin and stuff. Digital currency, that the jury's still out on that. I'm not sold on it, but they could still impress me. But blockchain, all that is a description of how a database works. Either the database is held on a machine like SQL or MySQL, just a file that has all your information on some software that's password protected, and that you query it to get your information, and that's it. That's a database. All a blockchain is a method of holding the database that can be held in a public, and anybody can just download this database and maintain it and add entries to it, because there are very, very specific rules that must be followed in order for a new entry to be added to the database. So therefore, that's where the mining comes in. But that's all a blockchain is. It's a freaking database that can be stored on public computers. That's it. It's not magical. It's not the wave of the future. All the blockchain really is just saying, hey, I want public computers to hold on to this database, and that adding the database is supposed to be done by a lot of math, a lot of trouble. Several computers have to agree, and then they can add it to the public chain, and that's that. So, in theory, you could, let's say, have a database of who owns a bunch of games for the Sony PlayStation 3, convert it to a blockchain, then release it to the public, so then anybody who wishes can host the blockchain for PlayStation 3, and then therefore, if everything was changed on your PlayStation, then it can download your games, because you look at the blockchain to see if it says, oh yeah, there's an entry in here that says you bought the game, we'll authorize you to download it. That's pretty much the only thing I can think of with blockchain. Other than that, it's buzzword bingo. It's just a database. That's all it is. Now, as far as earning money with those, that you're probably thinking of NFTs, which is, my personal opinion, that's one of the biggest newest jokes in the world. Just like the WADA-rated video games that are selling for $2 million. I'm not sold on that, and I think it's a big scam. I really do, because I donated a cartridge to the National Video Game History Museum just a few weeks ago, and that cartridge technically is priceless. Yet, because of the fact it's not water rated and it's not, it's not in a pristine brand new box, it's a freaking prototype, a one of a kind prototype. How more rare could it possibly be of a singular cartridge, of a singular game, that this is the only one in existence? Actually, there's two of them, but I have one of them. That alone should make the cartridge worth $1 million or something like that. But no, it's not a WADA-rated sealed copy of Mario 64. Therefore, it's not worth the $2 million that supposedly someone paid for an auction. I'm not sold unless that transaction even actually happened. Unless I actually see somebody come forward and say, hey, I'm the millionaire who thought a copy of Mario 64, a game that they sold 30 million copies of or more, is worth $2 million. Hell, I've got like 5 copies of Mario 64 sitting on a shelf. And I'm like, I bought these for $49.95 in like 1999 or something like that. I don't see how this could be worth $2 million. Merrick Ant writes, what are your thoughts on Cyberpunk 2077? I don't have any. Haven't played the game. Once I play the game, I'll tell you. All I know is that the game had issues upon launch, so I just simply said, oh, wait. Book says, Beanie Babies of the Day. Yeah, if you're talking about the water-rated stuff, I really think it's a replay of the rated collectible coins that happened in the 80s and 90s. because I was there during the time. I was alive in which all of a sudden there was a craze for collecting vintage coins, and that there was this company that was formed whose job it was to take your coin, rate it for clarity and stuff, and then seal it inside of a little plastic container, and then mark it down saying this is a 9.6 coin. And then people would then put it up on auction, and because there was a craze for people to think that this is something like an investment, for a while collectible coins were like the talk of the town, and people were buying them up as, like, mostly hedge fund brokers were buying them up as investments, thinking that they'll keep appreciating in value until sometime in the 2000s when the whole thing collapsed. Then people said, oh yeah, you've got a collectible coin of a Kennedy dollar. Yeah, we'll put it in the bin with the other 10,000 we have. Yeah, it's worth $5. Oh, you bought it in auction for $52,000? Lucky seller. Thank you. That's pretty much what I think is going to happen with water in about 4 or 5 years, is that people are going to wise up, market's going to dry up, and then the cartridge will be worth what they're really worth. In the case of Mario 64, it should be worth $40. So there you go. And let's see here. Someone says Cyberpunk 2077 has been a good game to flip with GameStop. Lots of retailers have been selling for $9.99 with a trading bonus to get $20 in credit. That's all I know about it. That's evil. So evil. I approve. Someone's Viola says, hello, Icon. And someone says, Coder Goddess Streaming. Another person says, I'd rather play Neuromancer, though. Yeah, I'd rather play it, too. In fact, I still have my Apple II and 2GS versions in the box. Which, of course, if I break the seal, I might not get a water rating. No! I don't care. I mean, what's the point of having a game that's still sealed when that also brings in the fraud? Haven't the people know what a shrink wrap machine is for? I actually have one downstairs because we're releasing a game in a couple of weeks called Lawless Legends for the Apple II, and I've got boxes and everything for it, and I have a shrink wrap machine. So who's to say I'm going to take this pristine copy of Earthworm Jim, better yet, on the Commodore the N64, I can get a pristine copy of Clay Fighter, the Sculptor's Cut, the one that was sold at Blockbuster. I'll carefully open it, take the package out, take the manual out, take the cartridge out, put a Mario 64 cart in there, and not even bother putting in the manual. Put the box together and very carefully seal it up. Then I'll shrink wrap it, and then send it to Water, and they'll probably rate it at 9.6, and then I can go ahead and sell this box that says it is Clay Fighter Sculptor's Cut for $1 million, and the person, because they'll never open a sealed game, will never know, maybe their descendants might figure out that they were ripped off. And therein is the whole problem of these sealed games. I mean, it's also not that hard for someone to get a box and with modern technology make an exact duplicate of the box. And because, again, if it's sealed, how are you going to know that what's inside the box is really what's supposed to be? What, you get an x-ray machine? Even an x-ray machine is just going to say, yeah, there's a cartridge in there. Yeah. So it just boggles my mind that people are rating sealed games and putting up on the shelf. Now, granted, there's a panache of having a sealed game, but at the same time, unless you get it from a reputable source, or you could see the game, like I had a game recently I sold to another collector of a game called Cyclone from Boone. And the reason it was easy to tell that shrink wrap was not re-shrink wrap was it still had the sticker of the hanger. They call it a coat hanger for the game. You take the box game, it's sealed. You stick a little sticker on the back, which is a little plastic hook, which is then in the store supposed to put it on the shelf. And it even had the imprint still on the shrink wrap of where the price sticker was. And you could just look at it and say, yeah, this is 30 years old. So that pretty much guaranteed that this was sealed from the day that it was manufactured, and it had been sitting in a box in here for like 35 years. And then once a collector saw that I actually had it, I told him it wasn't for sale for any price. But then I realized I actually had 2 copies of the game. So then I said, okay, fine, I'll sell you the sealed one. I'll keep the open one, because quite honestly, I wanted the open one because I could plug the cartridge into a VIC-20 and play the game. And the collector got his game. So we're both happy. And at least I sold it to him for a reasonable price for what the game was. But I can assure you, I did not sell it for a water price, because had it been water rated and other bullshit, then I could try to ride this little thing and say the game was worth a hell of a lot more. But that would be ripping someone off, to be quite honest. Because I sold the game for what it really was worth, about the value for it, but not a water price. That Planet of the Apes game, I bought it for, and I'll tell the world, $3,000. Because the collector and I knew, the person who found it in the flea market, he knew what the game was, and I said I wanted to preserve it. And so we agreed that he dumped the cartridge, and then he sold it to me, and he even gave me a letter showing its provenance, and then I took the cartridge and put it on a shelf. It's been on the shelf for 25 years. And then recently I found the cartridge again, brought it up on Facebook, and I said, you know what? I'm going to keep my promise. And I dropped it off at a museum, and now it's sitting in an exhibit, and that's where it belongs. Let me read some more comments here. Let's see here. Scrolling up. Thank God you weren't talking about crypto, because that's probably here to stay. Crypto, as in cryptocurrency, I think that eventually there will be a digital currency. I just don't think it's here yet, because the existing currencies have problems. Mostly like the amount of energy it takes to mine Bitcoin is actually causing problems in the world. And you can't have a cryptocurrency that uses energy at that level. That's not feasible. But I'm not into cryptocurrency. I'm just saying, yeah, probably in the Star Trek days when everybody uses credits, but quite frankly, are we using cryptocurrency now when we use credit cards and so forth? I mean, I rarely handle cash. I don't think I've held more than $100 total in the last 5 years. Everything is with credit cards. So, to be honest, I think we're cryptocurrency now. It's just being done with the credit card system and not with Bitcoin. A person writes, I have a few still sealed games, but that's just because I haven't gotten to them yet. I might have bought them in the 80s. I'm busy. That's from Jelly Be Good. Well, that's my excuse, too. I mean, I have shelves full of Interplay games that I got back when I worked at Interplay. And I mean, I literally have enough games that could fill all the bookcase like twice over. And they're all sealed. Because I got them, and this was back when they were being manufactured. Every time we made a game, I always grabbed like 5 or 6 copies and put them in a box. And it was all mostly because like I didn't know if in 3 years we needed a copy of the game, and I didn't want to go, to some collector, because back then in 1980 eBay wasn't a thing. Nikos writes, would you consider doing quick reviews of new indie games? Maybe give some hints, feedback from technical point of view. Yeah, I probably would. Temple Scrat writes, sealed collecting is super stupid. Grading even worse. It's really hurting the hobby. Can't agree more. Let's see. Another one. Adam Knight VA writes, honestly, what's the point of buying a game if you're not going to play it? Agreed. I mean, why buy the game unless you're either going to play the game or you're going to preserve the game? It's got to be one of those two. The third one, of course, is that you worked on the game and you wanted to show off your kids later on, saying, yeah, I'm not going to play this game because when I was working on it, I rotted my brain, because that means I don't want to see this game ever again. Or maybe you did art in it or something, so you never played the game, but you had something to do with it, so you at least like to have it as a keepsake. But I agree. What's the point of spending money on a game unless you're planning on putting it in a Atari 2600 card reader, reading it, and uploading it to share it so it can be preserved for all time. Or you have your own Atari, plug the cartridge in and start playing it because, hey, fun. And of course, that goes with any console, stuff like that. Evil Oatmeal writes, one would presume that someone serious about appraising games would pay attention to manufacturing and shrink wrapping techniques that verify it's authentic. But yes, it didn't seem the organizations that do it these days don't. And that's true. And here's another issue. When they manufacture cartridges, they're on an assembly line, and there's randomness to it. The cartridges are, the box is on assembly line, and it can be in any angle. Then it goes through a shrink wrap machine, so therefore the shrink wrap line is not necessarily even. Sometimes they're up to the top, off to the bottom. They're manufacturing errors. Technically, manufacturing errors like stamp collecting should make it even more valuable. But the whole issue is, like when Logicware was manufacturing boxed games, we were doing it by hand. We didn't even have an assembly line. So when we put the stickers to seal the box, some were off the left, some were off to the right. So how do you grade that? How do you grade, like, oh, how close is the sticker to the center of the box? Where's the seam of the shrink wrap? That's all subjective, which then goes back to what's the point of this grading and stuff like that. Someone named ZB Gameplay writes, I'm sorry for English, that is not my mother language. The reason I'm looking at a game that anyone can earn coins at a value in Bitcoin market. The attractive of this game is we don't need to buy or invest anything like other similar games. We must play, earn some coins, and sell Bitcoin market and transfer to a bank account. If true, that's good, isn't it? No, that's not true. That is a scam. Here's the problem. Mining Bitcoins requires a huge amount of processing power and energy to mine a single Bitcoin. A phone, while you can run the mining software, may take several years of your software to generate a coin. So because the people that are running the software, what they're doing is that they're installing their Bitcoin mining software on 1 million machines, 1 million cell phones, so that one of that million may get a coin, which of course makes money for the company. And then at that point they might give out just some small trinkets and prizes, but it's all in the game, so they're not really giving anything to the players, except they're running down your batteries. So all these millions of people are having to keep their phones plugged in their charger because the game they're playing is sucking up all the power because it's running Bitcoin mining software for the benefit of the company that made the game for you. So essentially, your free game is costing you money. The second problem is the thing that's also bothering me now is the so-called play to earn money games. Those games do not pay money. They're lying to you. What they do is that you start the game up and you start playing and it starts giving you tokens and say, yeah, if you get 100,000 tokens, you can go cash in on PayPal for $10. But the moment you get around 90,000 tokens, the game's rules change so that you barely earn any more of the stars or the tokens or whatever it is, so they never have to give you a payout. But the way they make money is you watch ads. So as you play the game, occasionally an ad comes up. You either just turn off the sound or skip it or whatever it is, but every time you watch the ad, they give like a penny or something like that to the host company. And again, if the company has 1 million games out there playing, and you're watching these ads, that can actually add up to some real money. But if you're playing the game thinking, like the ads are saying that, hey, I just paid my rent or I just paid for my food by just clicking on this little game here, that's never, ever going to happen. And the amount of money an individual makes for the company in the form of the ads is usually like $2 or $3 after like about a week. So if they gave you $1 of it, great. I played a game for a week and I earned $1. You know you can make that in about 10 minutes at McDonald's, right? So where is the benefit here? I could go to McDonald's and earn $15 an hour. So therefore, in $15 an hour means I earn $1 every 4 minutes. Or I can play the game for a week and earn $1. Math. Learn it. A person writes, cash is king at garage sales, where I get a lot of my games these days on the cheap, although I've seen that signs saying they take crypto. Well, if they take crypto, awesome. Cash is king. And then, of course, there are things like Square or something so that anybody can take credit cards. Zone writes, feedback on your stream. The audio is stuttery, like when your buffer size latency is too small and sounds double, like you got the audio 2 milliseconds apart. Okay, quick poll. Is my audio stuttering or having problems? If that is the case, then I will investigate. If it's just Zony's problem, then maybe this person needs to check their internet service provider or settings or stuff like that. That way we can rule out whether it's my problem or theirs. Then again, like I said at the very beginning of the stream, for those who came in earlier, this is a test stream. I'm using brand new software, streaming on 3 output platforms at the same time. I'm very glad it seems to be working as good as it is, but at the same time, I expect to see problems. So if anybody has problems, let me know. Person writes, you should write a book. I should. Damn, I still will pull 50 euros every 2 weeks from the APM. Okay. Person asks, what do you think of the new Nintendo expansion pass with old games and the Nintendo 64 controller, if you haven't talked about it already? Haven't tried it yet, but if it's anything like the Microsoft Xbox Game Pass, I could be talked into it. So, we'll see. Someone writes, I'm so fed up with PC parts prices now, haha, like can the miners please stop? Yes, please stop. That and also the scalpers. I'm still trying to buy a PlayStation 5. I am not buying it from a scalper, and every time I go to GameStop, sold out, sold out, sold out. Someday I'm actually going to go there, and they're going to have them in stock, and then that's when I'm going to bring my PlayStation 5 home. I mean, I have a PlayStation 5 dev kit. I had no problem getting it. But that's because the scalpers aren't trying to buy all the PlayStation 5 dev kits and then sell them to me for 20 times the price. So, whatever. Good point on... Let's see here. Fastman writes, good point on rare games. They really do belong in museums. They really belong in museums, but of course being digitally archived as well, highest possible change to preserve them. I agree on both. That's why we have the Internet Archive, to digitally preserve them, and we have places like the National Video Game History Museum in Frisco, Texas, where you can actually go see them on display right now. Fluffy Seal Gallus. Okay, I probably read that wrong. Yeah, I always thought the game collectors are like museum stuff, but I don't think playing the game is what keeps it alive. The companies don't want to transport the games to new devices. Okay. The one writes, which of your work that didn't turn out to be successful that you're most proud of? Ooh. Well, I know, like, you know, Out of This World and Wolfenstein 3D for the 2GS, I'm very proud of, because the fact they could prove it could be done. But granted, that was at a time when the 2GS, if you sold 1,000 copies, it'd be a miracle. So, you know, while it made money, I mean, well, Wolfenstein was not for sale; it was freeware. But Out of This World, we sold 2,000 copies on the 2GS, which for development costs like, I think, $10,000 for the port. 2,000 sold copies meant the Interplay, we made money, which is like, wow, we actually made money on that one. But unfortunately, there was not a way for me to convince them I should port other titles for the 2GS after that game, and everything else I did was kind of like hobby. Person writes, mining sucks, and yeah, 5-watt phone is versus a 250-watt GPU is kind of the difference in computing power. Yes, that's true. Another person says, those phone games that promise you gain money but have tons of ads, scam for sure. Yep. Audio fine, sounds robotic in Twitch, a little glitchy, not bad. I was going to mention it with Evil Oatmeal, hearing some small pop sounds, tried, no change. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and, after I've done this, I'm going to start looking at adjustments and looking at manuals and stuff with the software Streamlabs OBS 152 is what I'm running, to see if there are ways I can improve the audio stream. I don't mind the audio of weird sounds, but not so notable like boop boop sounds. If you use ISIO or STH when you set the buffer latency, this is what you go. Okay. Don't know what ASIO or STH is, but I will check the buffer latency to see what's going on. What's my favorite game right now? Do you own a Nintendo Switch? Yes, I own a Nintendo Switch. My favorite game, which is kind of like a guilty pleasure, is there's this game on my phone called Virus War. I don't know if anybody... There we go. It's basically a Galaxian style shoot 'em up, free to play. I've been playing it way too much. So that's my current one. But for other games, I played Zombiidle, and another one was the other one, of course, is playing play testing Dragons of the Rip. So that's what I've been playing testing a lot. And there's another game that I'm working on. See, that's my problem, is that I'm working on games, so I'm kind of playing the games, and unfortunately, because of non-disclosure, I can't say their names. So that's kind of the games I'm playing. But yeah, this Virus War game on the iPhone is kind of my guilty pleasure. Let's see here. I don't know, the 2GS numbers were so low. I couldn't find any 2GS games in the box to save my bleeping life. This audio is a bit scuff on Twitch. Well, the thing was that when the 2GS first came out, you could sell 50,000 copies of a game. I mean, Task Times and Tone Town, we sold a truckload of that game. And Bard's Tale 1 and 2 for the 2GS, we sold a lot of copies. But when I did Out of This World, that was in 1992, and Apple had just stopped making the 2GS, and in fact, they stopped selling them in stores for like 2 years. So the 2GS was kind of already a dying platform. So that was already at a time when people, like right now, I can make a new PlayStation 3 game. But the trouble is that the number of people actively buying games on their PlayStation 3 would be in the thousands. Whereas if I made the game for the PlayStation 4 or PlayStation 5, I have the potential to sell millions. So where do I put my efforts into? And therein is the problem. Now, of course, I did the 2GS version of Out of This World as a pet project. But it was still, realistically, the market was such that selling anything over 100 copies at the time was considered a hit, and the fact that we sold 2,000 copies was a mega hit. I mean, had we sold that game, 5 years earlier on the 2GS when it was still a thing, like 1988, 89, which was its peak, I would have easily seen 50,000 to 100,000 copies sold. But that's all about timing. Another person says, I used emulation as a way to get back to bare metal programming. I thought the boop boop sounds were a bonus. How's my feline overlord doing? And sounds weird on YouTube. Well, it is starting to get a little bit late because I wasn't planning on the stream to be going on as long as it is, so I'll answer these questions here. My feline overlord is doing quite well. We have 4 of them. The most recent addition was Agatha, the naughty cat, so naughty Agatha, because it was Agatha all along. She's gotten better. She's now a healthy little kitten who wants to climb up my leg and scar me for life. So she's doing great. Someone writes, just watched your Doom 3 video not long ago and glad you're still around. Thanks for all the videos. Yeah, that's still the PTSD, the chauffeur on that game. Far Left Shark writes, the 2GS was my first computer growing up, so I have a soft spot for it. Oh, my Apple II was my first commercial computer I used. I mean, before that I had AIM-65 and stuff, so that doesn't really count. But the Apple II has always had a soft spot for me, in that when I got the 2GS prototype, known as the Cortland, I was hooked, and I made the first commercial game, and I made the last commercial game. That's got to win some prize for something. But anyways, I'm going to be chilling out now because according to the timer, which I just glanced at, it's 1 hour and 14 minutes of glory here. So I'm going to have to cut this off. I'm going to be trying to do this every Sunday. So hopefully I can get to a regular schedule and come up with different ideas and things to talk about. But at least I'm glad my mad experiment of a 3-way streaming worked. So thank you very much. And again, my request is, if anybody out there who knows Streamlabs and how to make things pretty, please reach out to me on a DM either on Twitter or on Twitch, and we'll talk, because I just want to get pointers and get information. And yes, that was the cat. Where are you? Come on, Agatha. Aggie, where are you? Oh, hi, Rascal. Yeah. Rascal, the Rascallian's right here. He's just out of shot, but you might be able to see his ear. Someone says, any 3DO demo project to be developed as hobby. I'm not planning on doing anything yet on the 3DO, but again, it's back to hours in a day. Anyways, everybody out there in Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live land, until we meet again.